All right. Welcome everybody to the, I guess, technically the second meeting, but the first meeting of this council with a full agenda. So I want to welcome everyone here and also acknowledge the Whadjuk people as the traditional owners of the greater Fremantle-Wolup area. And we recognize that their cultural heritage beliefs are still important today. But I also just kind of wanted to add that I also acknowledge that, we meet here today on land that was never ceded, and that I wholeheartedly support the many campaigns for truth-telling, justice, and reconciliation here and across the country. The meeting here tonight is being recorded and streamed live online. So while all care is taken to maintain privacy, visitors in the public gallery and members of the public submitting a question or a petition, you may be captured on the recording. So just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that. It looks like we have a full house this evening, so there's no apologies or leaves of absence, but we do have one application for a leave of absence from Councillor Sullivan. Can I get someone to move that? Moved by Councillor Graham and seconded Councillor Moughlin. All those in favor? Great. Are there any disclosures of interest from elected members? Great, easy. And responses to previous public questions taken on notice. So there are none because the last meeting was really, really quick. And now we move into public question time. And considering that this is our first meeting of the month where we generally handle most of our planning matters, we ask that some people, if you want to speak before the item itself, then elected members can ask you questions. That's generally how we handle that. But if there are people here to speak on other unrelated matters that aren't on the agenda, you're welcome to come to the microphone, and you have 3 minutes to speak. And when that time is up, there'll be a sound, and we just ask that you try to wrap things up as quickly as you can at that point. So is there anyone in the gallery that is here to speak on general matters that did not sign in? Okay, gentleman in the back. All right, great. All right, and what was your name?
My name's Anton.
Anton. Oh, yep, I think we have you here, Anton. All right. You can come up now, though, if you'd like. I'm still getting used to this.
Are we all? Good evening, all. I've got 2 very quick questions. Question 1, my 2-year-old son was attacked by off-lead dogs in Griffith Park, Hilton, on Sunday, the 2nd of November. The trauma of this horrific attack was magnified upon learning that the City of Fremantle permits dogs in playgrounds under Section 31 of the Dog Act 1976. This clear incompatibility has been recognised by other West Australian councils, such as South Perth, Armidale and Bayswater, which ban dogs from up to 20 metres from unfenced playgrounds. In other jurisdictions around the country, for example, one cannot have a dog within the playground in the entire city of Sydney. I asked the council, what is the Mayor and the individual council's positions on the presence of dogs within playgrounds of the city? How can dogs in and near playgrounds possibly be considered a compatible public land use? And when are these bylaws under review, and when are they going to get changed to protect the health and safety of children? Question number 2. In topic C2511-3 of today's meeting, you will discuss the buffer areas around Chamberlain, Peel and Jarvis Streets, O'Connor. As a resident of one of these streets, I would like to raise the possibility of installing traffic controlling measures, such as speed bumps, roundabouts and the like. I have seen constant speeding, rat running and traffic law violations in these streets at the same time as traffic calming measures are being marked out in relatively benign streets such as Holland Street in East Fremantle. Is it possible to install these measures in the O'Connor peri-industrial landscape, pursuant to your directly quoted aims that the interface between industrial and residential land uses to have sufficient buffers that protect residential amenity and safety, and to protect pedestrian and cyclist movement? Does the council support such measures, and what would be the time frame for implementation? Thank you all.
Great, thank you, Anton. I hope your son is okay after the incident that happened on the 2nd. Yeah, and it must have been, it can be extremely confronting when you have unknown dogs coming up to young children. The city does have a lot of dog off-lead areas. Some of those areas are beaches, others are parks, and Griffiths Park is one of those. But there's still no excuse for bad owner behavior and bad dog behavior in those areas. But I may turn it over to the director for comment on when and if we are reviewing our off-lead policies, and if so, when that might happen.
Through the chair, yeah. Officers have been preparing a revised dog governance policy that will be brought out for community consultation in 2026. And the new policy will aim to be more consistent with the approach and make consistent the approach of the city and how we manage dog governance, including distinction of off and on lead exercise areas. And community engagement is tentatively proposed for Q1 and Q2 of 2026. And the public will have a chance to review the policy at that time and provide feedback.
Thank you. And then did you want to respond to the traffic one? Thank you.
Thank you, through the chair. Just in respect to traffic and traffic calming, we do have a traffic calming policy, and I'd be happy to pass on your comments to the engineering team and ask them to carry out an assessment. Thank you.
Great. Next up, we have Tom Fisher to speak to a general item. Is Tom here? No? Okay. And then on the general items, we also have Rupert McCracken, or is this for the petition?
It's in relation to...
Okay. You can feel free to speak now if you like.
Thank you. First of all, congratulations to the re-elected and newly elected members. Well done. In the next agenda item, which is petitions, I'll be presenting a petition in relation to pedestrian crossings in South Fremantle. But what I wanted to say right now was to put on record some findings from speaking with a lot of people and business owners along South Terrace in canvassing people for this petition. So from that exercise canvassing people, I've got about 950 petitioners, and I can confidently state the following. The current formalised crossings, which consist of a road narrowing, ramp down to street level, and sometimes a small refuge area in the middle of the road, do not provide a safe location for pedestrians to cross. There is no obligation for traffic to stop. Even if the near side traffic does stop, there is no guarantee that once the pedestrians get to the middle of the road, the traffic in the opposing direction will stop. This is a common comment and a frequent observation. Pedestrians are often stuck in the middle of the road with prams, dogs, hopefully on leashes, strollers, children, etc. So people don't find them useful or safe. The raised nose at the intersections of South Terrace, Little Lefroy, Sydney and Jenkins are confusing and dangerous. Vehicle drivers don't know what they signify. Pedestrians don't know what they signify. They don't slow all the traffic because the approach angles are too shallow. Some vehicles, reportedly utes or V8 four-wheel drives, seem to show off their car's capabilities by speeding up. Some vehicles and even buses have been seen driving on the footpath to get around turning cars. The speed bumps along South Terrace are ineffective for vehicles that need to be slowed. Any vehicle with a wheel gauge that fits in the valleys of the speed bumps can drive through them without any need to slow down. I can do it in my VW Transporter, and the larger utes and four-wheel drives do it with ease. As I will state presenting the petition, what the petitioners want are multiple safe crossings in South Terrace, Douro Road and Marine Terrace. The minimum standard is considered to be a zebra crossing that obliges traffic to stop for pedestrians, similar to the one in South Terrace adjacent to Alma Street, which seems to work well. A good example of a street that pedestrians would like South Terrace to be is Ferguson Street in Williamstown, Melbourne. It is a street with similar hospitality retail outlets, about 750 metres long with a roundabout in it. There are 5 crossings, 2 giraffe, 1 wombat, 2 zebra across Ferguson, and 3 zebra crossings on the feeder streets. So, you know, I guess I'm pointing out some of the things about the existing infrastructure that has been put in good faith with good reasons, but I think a review is required to say this stuff doesn't work. It doesn't work for the pedestrians, and it is in some instances making it more dangerous for everybody. So the question at the end of that is, will the council review the efficacy of the existing infrastructure before continuing with the node concept as proposed in the long-term budget? Thank you.
Great, thank you, Rupert. When we receive the petition, then staff will get working on that, and then they'll provide a response to the petition when it gets tabled. Thank you. Were there any other folks here to speak on general items or items that aren't on the agenda? No? All right, well then we'll move straight into petitions, if you don't mind, Rupert.
Petition here. I'm not sure who to give it to. It's got about 950 signatures. Most of them are Fremantle residents, ratepayers. And as I mentioned just before, what they're really looking for are safe places to cross the road. There's more traffic in South Fremantle. There's more pedestrians in South Fremantle. There are new developments. North Coogee is still developing. There's Clontarf Road developing. There are more pedestrians and there's more traffic. So that's the petition. The people want safe pedestrian crossings, not the formalised pedestrian crossings. So thank you.
No worries, and thank you, Rupert, for taking the time to put all that together. And I was just curious if one of the Coastal Ward councillors might want to officially receive that and be on record doing so.
Thank you. I'm happy to officially receive that. And excuse my voice, I've been talking all day. I think it's clear that we need better pedestrian safety throughout South Fremantle. And as Rupert knows all too well, the many cars, pedestrians, and different groups of people who use South Terrace mean that it is not currently a safe place for pedestrians to be. And I really support that the petition is saying that the minimum is zebra crossings along South Terrace. And I think for us, it'll be interesting how we think about pedestrian safety and whether or not that actually should mean pedestrian prioritisation along those key routes where we see hospitality, retail, and a mix, heavy pedestrian use of an area. So I'm excited to receive the petition and the report that comes from this.
Wonderful, thank you. And if there's no further petitions, we move on to deputations. None, presentations? No.
I have registered to speak up on a particular item, so
Yes,
I'm not sure what you mean when you ask, are there any more general questions?
yes. So when we get to that item, so there's a few items on the agenda. You can speak just before that, unless you wanted to speak now during general question time. Whatever. Oh, wonderful. Great. Well, we shall do that.
I'm Jerry McGill, North Fremantle Community, and I'm speaking, making a comment on item 25114, which concerns the transport plan. Fremantle, like most local governments, has been rendered powerless by successive state governments, giving them little power over the decisions that most affect their communities. This makes it more than ever important for council to advocate strongly for their communities. This is above all true for North Fremantle in the area of transport. So participation in the state government's government-led integrated transport plan is very welcome. The road and rail transport changes demanded by the container port's expansion have devastated North Fremantle, and the current proposal to take Curtin Avenue across the railway land and to feed traffic into Stirling Highway, further severing the town, demands total resistance from this council. This, however, is but one issue on which council has failed to adequately support the community's efforts in supporting in its defence of its way of life. Other notable examples are the Pier 21 Pelagic Marina proposal, which will further alienate the community from a precious and rare section of its riverfront, where locally we expended a huge effort in preparing submissions and meeting the proponents, while the matter wasn't even presented to elected membership in council to give them an opportunity to express an opinion and support the community's efforts. We have also fought a lonely battle over several years for the scandalously abandoned former North Fremantle Police Quarters, where the council should long ago have held the government publicly to account. Submissions are called on developments, and council office prepare the Orwellian-named responsible authority report that disappears into the maw of JADAP, with the elected members not discussing it in a formal setting and providing comment. An example mentioned in the agenda tonight is the so-called co-living proposal on the former Black Truffle site. This excited a huge amount of attention and many submissions from residents, but has not been considered by council. And the responsible authority report, which isn't, I should point out, attached to the online agenda, and presumably includes the report on submissions, will go to JADA without ever seeing the light of day. So how is the community supposed to know that its concerns have been given proper consideration? The bridge works and imminent closure of the river crossing are of immense importance to the community. But for months, we've raised questions and made submissions to MRWA with little effect, as their priority is north-south and port-related traffic, with little consideration for local access, pedestrians and cyclists. So we welcome Council's participation and advocacy in the state government-led integrated transport plan, but would like to see a similar advocacy effort by Council in support of the community for the bridge issues. A joint Council community effort is essential if things like gridlocking of local streets are to be averted. Successive governments may have extracted Council's planning teeth, but that's no reason to be struck dumb and wring your hands in frustration. So I have 3 words for you: advocate, advocate, advocate. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Jerry. There are several points in there that you raised, and they're all extremely important, but just know that there are some really great folks in this chamber that are going to be advocating during the bridge closure for some better outcomes. And do you want us to take, because you hit quite a few, Pier 21, the old post office, bridge closure, the item on the agenda. Are you okay if we maybe just take those on notice and just provide it in the next agenda?
Yes, by all means.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Okay. All right. Any other public question times that I had missed? All right. Then we'll go back to the agenda in the confirmation of minutes. Can I get someone to move in second? Confirmation moved Pip, or Councillor Slaughter, and seconded Williamson Wong. All those in favor? Great, unanimous. Okay. All right, now elected member communication. We got some, Councillor Graham.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I might be on one tonight, so be careful. I want to bring into the public domain the closure of this Henderson Street car park. It has really bugged me that it has closed down without any great consultation with anyone sitting around this chamber. The Henderson Street car park has been most probably 40 years now. I remember when you could drive through Henderson Street, and that was when the Sail and Anchor was getting done up, so I'd say at least 40 years. So for it to be closed down for no particular reason that I can see after 40 years and coming into Christmas seems quite bizarre. I'm told that it's going to become an activated site. Well, I don't know what activation sort of facilities are going to be there that are going to give us the same general revenue that the parking does. Now, I know that when we approved the Spices site, there was something attached to that this would close down then. Now, we know if the shovels arrived at the Spices site tomorrow, it's still going to take 2 years to build. So, you know, I still think that Henderson Street car park should be there for a long time. So my concern is that we didn't actually have a council resolution to close this car park, that I think it's just been arbitrarily done by the staff, and might get that question in a minute. So I won't waste any more time, but I will ask my questions, and if I'm wrong with the first one, I will apologise, but I don't think I will be. Why was the decision to close the car park made without a council resolution? How much parking revenue is council going to lose with its closure? And will the activation plan, if there is one, generate as much revenue as we get from the parking that we have now? So they're the three questions. As you can tell, Monday night I wasn't happy about this being closed. I'm still not happy, and mostly will never be happy about this little car park being closed at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. I'll just turn it over to the Director or the CEO for a reply.
Thank you, Mayor. Through the Chair. The decision to close the car park was made recently by officers in relation to a very prior decision by council to close that car park in the past. There is a development that's going to occur next door, and we are preparing for that as well. We are very acutely aware not to just leave it, so we have organised that activation will occur through the local business, through the Fremantle markets, and through ourselves to ensure that it is an activated space. I don't have offhand how much that car park revenue was over the last 12 months. Maybe the Director has. We'll have to come back with that answer.
Councillor Moughlin.
Thank you. I just wanted to share with Council that, again, on Sunday I had the pleasure of and the opportunity to pull the trigger on the starting hooter for the Fremantle Running Festival. This year it was again a sold-out event with 3,000 participants running the streets of Freo from 6:15 in the morning, and otherwise dead time in town. And there was many supporters lining the streets, whether it be up on South Terrace or in and around the Esplanade. Wanted to just make a couple of important acknowledgements as part of that. So firstly to the organisers, the WA Marathon Club, who after several years of now running this event back in the centre of town have got it down to a fine art and minimise the amount of disruption that does occur to city residents. But by running the event at 6:15 in the morning and essentially most of it being done by 9, creates a great activation for, as I said, what is otherwise a quiet time, and they are committed to running this event for many years to come and show great respect to Fremantle as part of that. I also wanted to call out the city's street cleaning team. Maybe about 4 years or so ago when the event first moved back into the city centre, kicking off early on a Sunday morning was a little bit fraught in terms of what the streets look like and what experience you might have. So the nicest thing was most probably a kebab wrapper, and then you can imagine other things that were along the way. But as I was coming into town, I walked down Henderson Street Mall, followed by a street sweeper who were cleaning up the streets, and I didn't see an ounce of rubbish on the roads or on the footpaths. I ran the course myself, several laps, so I got to see it a bit. Then the only mess was which was left by the runners themselves when they had their drinks, but was cleaned up by the organisers as they went. But yeah, I think the investment by the city and this council in those services are paying great dividends. So great to see, and it was excellent feedback from the organisers about how the city was presented.
Thank you, Councillor Moughlin. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mayor. I just two matters I just want to quickly raise. Firstly, to congratulate our former colleague and friend, Aidan Lang, and his partner, Cassie, who is a former employee of the city, who have recently had their first baby together, and has already been to the dog beach at South Beach for not so much a swim, but sat there in the pram, lay there in the pram while Aidan went for a swim. So congratulations to them. Secondly, as one person is brought into the world, another passes, unfortunately. So I just really wanted to acknowledge the passing and the funeral of Dr. Gerard Shaw, who was laid to rest earlier this week. And he was a very active and vocal member of our Reconciliation Action Plan Committee. And he also was, I guess, a member of the Stolen Generation, had been through quite a lot of trials and tribulations through his life, but always managed to present with great kindness and great compassion, and an amazing ability to simply accept his lot in life and ask others to acknowledge it, but also to be aware of it as part of truth-telling, as you mentioned earlier on. And, you know, some of the things that I learnt, you know, you learn a lot more about a person in their funeral, unfortunately, than you perhaps knew in life. But some of the things that he went through, and to still be able to present and represent his community and do it in such a generous, spirited way, is truly something that needs to be recognised. And I thank him for his contribution to our community and to the Whadjuk Noongar community and to the broader First Nation community, because his contribution was amazing. So thank you to, I always knew him as Reverend Shaw, but of course he's now Dr. Shaw because he PhD at Murdoch University and the like. So yeah, I'm wearing the things that were provided to wear at the funeral. He very much wanted us to be celebrating Indigenous culture, Indigenous colour, Indigenous art, and the like. So yeah, I thought it was worthwhile noting his passing. I also like to just briefly thank quite a few members of staff who attended, and one of our directors, Pete Stone, was actually a pallbearer as well. So thank you, Pete, and thank you to all of your staff for showing great respect by coming to the funeral. Thank you.
Well said, Councillor Sullivan. Any other elected member communication? All right. That means we move into the agenda portion of, or officer report portion of our agenda tonight. And we've got a fair number of speakers on a couple of the items. But I've also been told that we have a representative here from the Hilton Park Bowling Club who needs to leave, and that's item 10 on the lease. It needs to leave fairly soon. So what I might do, just to, in case any elected members have any questions about that item specifically, move number 10 first, which is the Hilton Park Bowling Club lease. And then if people have questions, Mike will be here to answer those. All right, so, or sorry, I won't move that. If I could ask someone to move that item first, that would be great. Councillor Mufflin, and second. Councillor Kamada. All right. It's open for debate. Are there any questions? No? All right, well then we'll put that item up for a vote. All those in favor? And, all right, and all those against? That would be unanimous. Great, thank you. That item's passed, approved. Okay, now we'll go back to the agenda as it's printed, starting with item number 1. We have a fair number of speakers on this item, so I'm just going to read through them as they are printed here, but if there's a specific order that people prefer them to be in, maybe just, you can queue up or just let me know your name when you get up there to speak. But I'll start with here, I've got Angela Webb. And when you hear the timer go off, that's the 3 minutes. So if you don't mind, if you hear that noise, just try to wrap up your comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor and councillors, for having us here tonight. And I acknowledge the Whadjuk Noongar people as the original custodians here. and we walk gently on this land in reconciliation. I'm here to represent the Diocese of Perth, the Anglican Diocese of Perth, the Perth Diocesan Trustees, who are the legal entity that owns the parish of Beaconsfield land. So the parcel of land which is adjacent to 166 Hampton Road. So it has the Church of St Paul's, plus the Mission Hall and the Rectory and car parks and all that around there. The church is a tricky thing for council sometimes to understand, but the parish doesn't own that land. The Perth Diocesan Trustees own the land. And so any information that should have been passed on to owners needed to go to the Perth Diocesan Trustees, and we're not sure that actually happened in relation to this development. But having said that, PDT and the diocesan property people have indicated that as a general rule, we don't have any objections to social housing being developed in the city of Fremantle. Our main concern about this development is the safety of the people who attend the parish, because there is an easement that separates the parish land from the strata land on which this development is taking place. And that easement occupies the parking between the two properties is where that easement is. So there's been a long history of coming to terms with how that easement is managed, and it's only just recently, from something that began in 2010, that it's been finally rectified and finally arranged. So the parish and the strata company, the strata organisation, that trade under St Paul's Beyond Inc., share that easement. The strata company named St Paul's Beyond Inc. is not legally attached in any way to St Paul's Anglican Church. It has a history of people from the parish developing that land, but legally there is no link between those two. And that's something that we need to be really clear about. So my concern, and the PDT's concern, is for the traffic access and the shared driveway safety and the parking availability that is going to be allowed if this development takes place. There's also protection about the easement and the documentation about access of the developing group to that easement and to the property, as well as the ongoing consultation and engagement by the applicant to the landowners of the adjacent property are our concerns. I have provided 12 questions in total. Some of them have been addressed in the report that Council put out with the agenda. We didn't have that until today. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. Should we just respond to all the comments at once at the end? Okay, wonderful. All right. Next up is, on the same item, is Freya George.
Hello. I live at 168 Hampton Road, which is directly adjacent to the proposed development at 166 Hampton Road. My objection is twofold. Firstly, the demolition. I'm aware of the issues surrounding the illegal demolition of 16 Hampton Road. Why then would 166 Hampton Road be given legal permission to demolish a heritage house? And 168 Hampton Road was recently recognised as a contributing factor to the heritage value of South Fremantle under the Fremantle Council's heritage proposals. Why has 166 Hampton been exempted from this when it is of similar visual heritage frontage? And the second is the proposed three-storey development at 166 Hampton Road will thoroughly overwhelm my single-storey heritage house and will look completely at odds with it. It will provide a distinctive and unattractive contrast and will also vastly reduce my northern light. The heritage street frontage of Hampton Road will be compromised even further. I also have been delegated by my neighbour to talk for her. Shall I? Yep, it's short and sweet. Maureen Robinson. I live at 3B 166 Hampton Road. I am an immediate neighbour of the lot which is under consideration at this meeting. I oppose it on two. One, the demolition. I oppose the intention to demolish the whole house. The front aspect of the house should be preserved so that it complements the intended street frontages proposed by the Fremantle Council. And two, the second point is the size and height of the proposed three-storey building containing 5 units, which is excessive. It is likely that the tenants will require car parking, which will overflow into St Paul's car park, which is already struggling with congestion. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up, we have Maureen Robertson on the same item. Oh, great. Sorry. And how about Christabel? Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak at this meeting, and congratulations to the new council and mayor. Since 2002, following the purchase of 9 Macleary Street behind St Paul's Anglican Church, Beaconsfield, and over the past 20 years, there's been a vision for a community housing development around the St Paul's Anglican Church precinct. This vision is described in a booklet called A History of St Paul's Community, which took it up to 2010, and Chris Williams has copies of that if there's any councillors or any members of the gallery who would like a look at it. And on page 57, it describes the vision of having a living presence of community members living near the church, which was first discussed in 1981 by Peter Newman when he suggested units be built on the church basketball court. The vision described was of a community housing precinct around. There's no indication that it actually belongs to the church or the Perth Diocesan Trust. It's a total privately funded community housing development, which I was informed by the Community Housing Association is unique in Australia. In 2010, having moved from Macleary Street, where there's now 3 units of the community living, I bought 166 Hampton Road, which I understood to have been originally the tennis courts attached to St Paul's Church, which was sold off at times of hardship. And so I bought it back. And part of my desire to buy it was to ensure that the driveway could increase the parking for the St Paul's Church during the development of the amphitheatre and meeting place components behind the church building. It was a requirement of the council that more parking be provided, and that's the actual reason for the easement that exists. The driveway of the strata has been handed over to the church car park for use, and the easement has been the attempt to regulate that and join it together. I did part of this. I did want to be part of it and buy this house to be part of the community housing vision, along with others who, despite our being privately funded, always intended to include an affordable, low-cost, single-bedroom habitat for people who may be struggling to pay rent and who wanted to live within the Fremantle community and near the St Paul's precinct. I gave some of this history before, and I have to give Richard Hammond's apologies because he wanted to comment on the report that had been submitted, and I'd like to read his comments now. Comments on the planning report. I consider that the heritage status of the existing house is overstated. 1940s homes are widespread across Fremantle, with many of them better examples than 166 Hampton Road. I also think that the house adds little to the streetscape, which is extremely varied from Martha Street back to St Paul's, going from modernist to colonial and ultimately 1940s style. The view of the house from Hampton Road is obscured by trees, and it contributes nothing to the community open space car parking area between it and the church. In terms of contributing to a sense of place, St Paul's and the community developed homes and external spaces are the most significant contributors along that section of Hampton Road. The church community and the people who live in the church precinct have done an excellent job in overseeing and adding elements to the church site which are both loved and used by a broad cross-section of the community. They have created a series of spaces which are greatly appreciated, widely used and significant. The housing models developed on the site are exemplars of the best form of community housing, appropriate in the relationship with the church building, a form of housing tenure which supports residents and the creation of a supportive community. This model of housing should be greatly encouraged. The removal of 166 will enable an increase in needed housing stock given the accommodation produced in the new building. The replacement of 166 with the proposed housing model creates a balanced square off the public open space, creating a gathering point whilst matching and strengthening the existing built form developed by the community. The scale of the proposal is entirely appropriate given the church building, the existing housing and the proportions of the public open space. From Hampton Road, the existing trees will soften the view of the new building and contribute to a microclimate.
Great. Thank you, Christabel. We've got a lot of people to speak on the item tonight, and we've been a little bit generous because you were reading someone else's statement there.
I didn't hear a gong, sorry.
Oh, it's been several minutes over,
All
but
right,
that,
okay,
I
I'm sorry.
appreciate you taking the time to come down and speak.
Yes, can I just say, I urge the council to support the alternative resolution put by Councillor O'Sullivan and Van Dawson, and if the application is approved tonight, we are very happy to comply with all the conditions that are being put forward and are very grateful for Richard Hammond's contribution and assistance in the future development.
Thank you, Christabel. All right, so I just remind folks, when you hear the buzzer, I'll ask you to wrap up your comments so that way we can get through everyone here tonight. The next on the list is Eddie Marcus for the same item. Is he? Okay, all right. Amanda Butterworth, you are next up. Great, thank you.
Hello Mayor, councillors and staff. I'm Amanda Butterworth of Allarding and Associates, representing St Paul's Beyond Inc in their development application, seeking approval for the demolition of the existing house and construction of the 3-storey residential building at 166 Hampton Road. I have prepared a presentation, which I believe you've all been given copies of. Thank you. We request that you support the alternative recommendation of approval put forward by Councillor Sullivan. Next page, please. The residential building is intended to provide short-term accommodation for those in need, particularly some of our more vulnerable community members. We refer to the development as Charis House. Next page, please, if you're following along. The site of the proposed Charis House sits within a strata development of 5 dwellings and is located adjacent to St Paul's Church, which all combine to form the St Paul's Church precinct. The site for Charis House fronts Hampton Road in proximity to a bus stop that services numerous bus routes, with the surrounding development on the eastern side of Hampton Road having a varied street setback that's not consistent. Next slide, please. The design of the development is in keeping with the built form within the St Paul's Church precinct and picks up on the architectural features of the existing buildings with the proposed rendered walls, metal roof and the feature arch element. Next slide, please. The surrounding locality has a mix of building typologies with a variety of setbacks, heights and styles. Next slide, please. The building height of Charis House matches the top of the roof height of the dwellings to the rear in the St Paul's Church precinct, and the overall building height represents a graduation from the height of the apex of the church down to the dwelling to the south. Next slide, please. Earlier this week, we submitted an updated landscape plan showing the deletion of the 2 parking bays in the front setback and replacement of this with bike parking and landscaping. This has also enabled the retention of the tree in the front setback area. We consider that this is a positive step forward and addresses the concerns raised in the officer report, and we would be happy to implement this amended plan and retain the tree in the front setback. Next slide, please. In regard to the demolition of the existing building, we provided a heritage report on the building as part of our application, and our independent heritage consultant has advised that the existing building has no outstanding cultural heritage characteristics and therefore does not meet the threshold for inclusion on the city's heritage list. The council resolution from August 2025 was not to include the building at 166 Hampton Road on their heritage list, and therefore we say local planning policy 3.6 regarding heritage protected places does not apply. Furthermore, we say development approval is not required for demolition of the building as it's not heritage listed. Next slide, please. We consider that the existing development along this section of Hampton Road is not consistent in scale or form, and the proposal represents a graduation in terms of building height from the church to the dwelling at 168 Hampton Road, with the materials, colours, detailings, roof pitch, use of balconies and form of the windows and doors, all reflecting the built forms of the dwelling to the rear of the church. Next slide, please. We consider that Charis House is respectful of the surrounding development and will sit in harmony with the church precinct and will be a positive contribution to the area. We consider that the application is capable of approval and warrants approval. We're happy for the amended landscape plan with the retention of the tree in the front setback to form part of the approved plans. We accept the conditions put forward in the alternative recommendation by Councillor Sullivan, and we request your support to the alternative recommendation to approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Last speaker on item 1 that we have on our list here is Roger Philpott. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. I took the liberty of distributing to councillors my presentation, and unfortunately tonight I need to deviate a little bit from that because of some comments that have been made about the project. First of all, I'm Vice President of St Paul's Beyond Inc. St Paul's Beyond Inc. has no links with the strata and no links with the diocese or the church, but it is formed out of people who belong in that community, and its objective is to do good works. Charis actually means grace, kindness, life, and that's what we're trying to do with this development. The issue of demolition, modern demolition techniques, and with all the conditions of council, should see that there is minimum disruption to any property. The proposed building site is more than 18 metres from the church, and the existence of the church property and the maintenance of its heritage aspects has always been our prime consideration. Indeed, when we started to develop the whole site, the church when the site was being developed for the strata, the Anglican Church's Community Fund provided the money for the construction project to build the existing new houses. There was a very close linkage and relationship. Subsequent to that, the Anglican Archbishop came out and visited the site to see what we were doing, and also brought a busload of young ministers out to see what could be done in building a residential community around a church building. And that is one of the interests of our current housing minister in this state. Whilst he's not advocating for 166 principally, he's looking at how this concept of building a residential site that accommodates more people than a standard residential house. You know that the Australian community is criticised for having too big a buildings, and this was he's keen to see what happens, how the bureaucracy and other things manage and handle this, and perhaps what needs to be changed in the housing law, because they are going through a review of the housing law. I'd also like to mention that about 4 or 5 years ago, the then minister at St Paul's Church was helping me unload some material, some furniture and goods for refugees and homeless people. And that's where the idea of proceeding with redeveloping 166 actually originated, because the comment was made that we have a very comfortable middle class to wealthier people settled all around. There are a lot of people who can't afford property and things in Fremantle, and we need to do something for them.
Great,
That's
thank you,
exactly
Roger.
what we've done.
Appreciate that, thank you. That is all the speakers I have on the list to speak on that item. Is there anyone else in the gallery tonight that wanted to speak to item 1? Okay, maybe I'll turn it over to Chloe to maybe answer some of the questions that were raised about it. There were a few about the legality of the land and heritage and sunlight and stuff.
Through the chair, I know one of the speakers did send through a list of questions on the application. As I mentioned, a lot of that is covered in the agenda item, which I believe they have now seen. A lot of the questions were in relation to things like traffic management, waste management, and those kind of things. You may have seen in the alternate recommendation that Councillor Sullivan has put forward that things like traffic management, waste management, will be conditions of approval that need to be looked at. The site isn't proposing any car parking now with the revised plan, so in terms of traffic, in theory there is no cars coming to the property. With parking, if anyone is wanting to park on the church's property, that is on their permission, and there is no agreement that's been put forward by the applicant for reciprocal parking. So there would need to be a formal agreement put forward that everyone agreed to. Same with any removement of easements. All relevant parties would need to agree to that, and there'd be legal processes that would need to be run through. I'll put it back to the chair if there are any particular other questions that they had for me.
No, I think we'll get to the item unless the elected members have any questions. Okay, great. Just noting that we've got an alternate recommendation and a staff recommendation, so either one of those can be moved and seconded, and whichever one gets moved and seconded, we'll start debate on that item.
I'll move my alternative recommendation.
And seconded by Councillor Van Dorsen. Great. Do you want to open?
Perhaps if I can just ask some questions first, and then I'll open debate. Excuse me. Through the chair, probably to the manager, one of the issues that's been raised is overshadowing, but given the nature of a strata development, can you explain what the codes require us to do, if anything, in terms of shadowing from one building on a strata to another building on the same strata?
Through the chair, this development in itself is a residential building, so the normal R codes don't technically apply. We do apply them with some guidance to give an idea of how properties might fit together, but broadly the R codes look at a parent lot, so it doesn't necessarily look at how one building overshadows another. There are things like setbacks and outdoor living areas and open space that sort of come into more general discussion, but there isn't a very strict application of overshadowing for this particular development.
A second question, which I think was asked genuinely but not necessarily specifically responded to, so I'll ask it again. The representative from the diocese was indicating that the consultation with them hadn't been particularly direct. Were they, as the landowner of the adjoining property, was it the diocese that was informed, or was it the parish?
Through the chair, I did check our information today, and we did send notices to the diocese, a general post office address in central Perth. So I believe we did send it to the diocese.
Okay, I'll open debate if I can. This is, I know for most elected members, a challenging one. I wasn't obviously in the chamber when the South Fremantle Heritage Listing issues were resolved. So I wasn't a party to the debate about whether or not this building should be heritage listed or not, but clearly council made a decision not to proceed at this point in time with the heritage listing as a contributory property or in its own right. And therefore I would tend to agree with the perspective that the building is not heritage listed and that the demolition of it should not be controversial in a procedural sense. Whether or not you believe it should be on the heritage list or not on the heritage list seems to be a moot point in my perspective because it's not. So that then gets me to the question of the redevelopment. The concerns that I originally had were, I must admit, I originally had the concern that others perhaps have had from the community about the scale of the development. And then I started to think about the context of a church precinct where typically in society, the church has a kind of a dominant element in a landscape, in an overall community. In the same way, perhaps a poorly worded comparison, in the same way as a pub on a corner in South Fremantle would typically be a two-storey building in amongst a whole bunch of single-storey residential side streets. And so it does, you know, the buildings that are part of a church precinct, and I consider not just the bit that's owned by the diocese to be part of that, but I do consider the developments that have occurred around it to be part of that collective religious community. And in many ways, we shouldn't be seeking to impose the normal streetscape or the normal compatibility test with the surrounding residential. We should be, I think, looking at the precinct that's created as part of the church and giving consideration to whether it fits into that context. And for me, when I look at all of the buildings in that precinct, I do feel that this is simply another one of the elements that puts that package together. In addition to that, I look at the issues of Hampton Road. We're not dealing with a side street of South Fremantle. We're not dealing with the inner core of the residential areas. We're dealing with the very outer skin, which has in many ways been hardened by its exposure to too much traffic, its exposure to a 4-lane road instead of what it was designed to be, a 2-lane road, and its exposure in many ways to being blighted by that. So I look at that environment and I see an opportunity, I guess, to deal with it in a slightly different way than we would if it was in the core of the residential areas. And I think about the developments further afield, you know, the old post office, which is a fairly significant and proud building in that streetscape, feeling a little bit lonely perhaps these days. But also up to the north, there are a number of buildings which are certainly bigger. So I think there's a context that we need to take into account that's part of the Hampton Road streetscape where a bit more diversity is reasonable. I do have, you know, I think we all had concerns about, well, how we deal with the issue of, you know, 3 significant trees being pulled down. Our policy does talk about can development reasonably go ahead by keeping all of the trees. I came to the conclusion that redevelopment of the site was quite likely to require the 2 trees at the rear to come down, irrespective of what sort of development it was. But for me, the tree in the front environment was a step too far, particularly on Hampton Road, as I said, which is a very harsh environment anyway. So all of the treescapes that exist in the front gardens along Hampton Road are the only opportunity that really exists for some sort of canopy cover in that area. And I would hope that if we're going to lose some trees on the block, that there is an opportunity for new planting to actually increase that sense of canopy cover along the street, albeit we can only really deal with this strata lot, but I would be encouraging the diocese and also the parish community and the community that owns these strata lots to give that some serious consideration, which would be a requirement of this of the planning approval, that additional trees are going to need to be planted. I do have concerns. I mean, this has been a little bit on the run in terms of the issue of the car parking. It's not entirely clear to me, and I might sort of flag it as a question to the staff again, but it's not entirely clear to me that there is existing parking at the front of the current cottage, but it appears to gain access from a shared driveway, which is part of the strata to the south. I'm not sure whether there is any sort of legal arrangement in terms of that access, but it did occur to me that there would be a somewhat of an in-between version of what was originally proposed, which was 2 car bays at the front, and the current proposal, which is no car bays at all. It did seem to me that there would be an opportunity for at least a car bay or even a drop-off zone in the front setback that would still allow the tree to be kept, but also would provide a little bit more opportunity for coming and going from the site that didn't necessarily involve the diocese land to the north. The other concern that I have is that the design could quite easily be modified, I would have thought, to increase the amount of sunshine that would continue to be enjoyed by the owner to the south, particularly in relation to the rear veranda areas. I know that the design of the buildings in this precinct, they have a lot of verandas, but when they start to impact on particularly the rear yard of the property to the north, I think there is opportunity for a modified design to lessen the extent and to modify the way the roof works, even to lessen the extent of the overshadowing on the property to the south. But it's not it's not as black and white in the scheme of things, because it's not sort of a mandatory requirement. We don't have in front of us an assessment that says, hey, it's 35% overshadowing and it's meant to be 30 or whatever. Pull it back 5%. I don't really have the toolkit as a planning decision maker to say that should be mandatory. So, but it is something that I think the applicants should look at as a good neighbour to see whether they could modify the way the roof works in those areas to lessen the overshadowing and increase the sustainability of the property to the south. But at the end of the day, I still feel that this should be approved with the conditions that are set in the recommendation. And I might just sort of leave it at that and hand back that question to the manager.
We've really only had the opportunity to review the plan that the applicants provided. The location of the new development is further forward than the existing cottage, so we'd probably need to have a look at the existing tree where that car bay would go. You'd then lose the opportunity for the additional landscaping the applicant's putting forward in this plan.
Follow-up question, if I can, Mr. Mayor. So given that I guess the front landscaping has to be subject to review, presumably that sort of conversation can come through that process. If they were to propose an additional, to add a bay as part of the landscaping, it could be dealt with at an officer level?
Yes, it could, potentially. Yeah, we'd need to, obviously by removing the other regulated trees, the expectation is that new trees are planted, and ideally if you can get them in the front setback, that's the best opportunity. So it's probably a trade-off of what's better, a tree or a car bay.
Councillor Van Dorsen.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is a tough one, just given the nature of the change, but I do agree with Councillor Sullivan's comments and on consideration, very, very similar views, but I'll just try to talk through them briefly for just around my thought processes. So again, on the demolition, it isn't a heritage listed property, so I would support the demolition. I just don't think there's anything technically that we can refuse that on. And whilst the officer's report does talk about the heritage assessment that was done, it wasn't added as, wasn't included in the list, and we do have to look at a proposal on the current planning framework and currently not listed. And also, yeah, it's interesting with heritage assessments, it's always a very subjective nature to it, and often when proposals come forward for heritage properties, you'll have two heritage consultants with different views. It's a subjective matter, and you do have to sort of weigh up a lot of things in our decisions. I do think, so again, moving to the new development then, I do think the design is in keeping with the design of the precinct, so it just ties it in nicely. And the 3 stories is a lot next to the single story, but I do feel it provides that transitional height, so it's not sitting on its own. And also, as Councillor Sullivan said, and is shown in some of the information, is there is a diversity of scale and design in that streetscape when you look beyond the immediate surrounds. So I don't think it would be out of keeping. And I actually like the design that it's tying to the precinct, because I think that's a really important part of this proposal that really sort of swayed me one way. Was I did have the opportunity to go to the site and walk through some of the existing properties that are part of the church precinct, and this will be a part of, and it is a really special community, and I think is such a supportive environment and a beautiful church, and the surrounds are such high amenity and the communal facility. And while this is not part of that property, it's part of the strata, and it just is such an inclusive environment. And I think the fact that it will be managed by this group, I think will provide, yeah, it gives me assurance of the type of people who'll be there and the behaviours and what have you. And a huge part of this is the type of development and the people who will be staying there. I think it's exactly what we want in our community. Like we've got a single house being replaced with multiple dwellings that will provide an affordable housing option for short stay and to vulnerable members of the community. And we need so much more of that. And in this housing crisis, I think, and it's this community, when I went there, I thought this is just exactly what we want in Fremantle. So expanding that, I think, yeah, is huge, significant community benefit is really what swayed me over, looking past the discretion. And again, I think the key consideration is the height and parking discretion. The height we've sort of addressed. I think it does provide that transition, and there is an overshadow impact, and that is shown on one of the diagrams, and it does say 39%. But whilst there's not that technical requirement or thing we can look at with on a strata, that's to me, there's likely a little discretion there, but it's certainly consistent with and less than a lot of developments we approve with neighbouring, even going up 2 stories on a neighbouring property. I think it's sort of generally consistent with what, if the planning framework applied in this situation. The parking, another one, my preference strongly would be to keep the tree. I think the thing when we're looking at parking discretion, I think the nature of the development just being short term and for low-income people. They are less likely to have a car. I do work in my job in this space. We accommodate similar cohort of people. I do know that to be true, and I think also short-term accommodation and just that proximity, having those high-frequency bus services and being so close to Fremantle, I think I'm comfortable with the parking discretion. I would like to keep the tree and that opportunity to retain some parking in the front courtyard. I think there is an opportunity there. I think the one thing, I guess, on the design perspective, I would have liked a little bit more of a setback from the front, potentially retaining the current footprint setback, but I understand they're small units as they are, and maybe something, if it doesn't get approved tonight or potentially deferred, that the applicant could look at. They were the key things, and I think the traffic access and safety for the adjoining property has been addressed. So I think they are separate properties, and wouldn't see that being an impact on the neighbour and the congestion there. But I would like, as in the conditions of approval, I think everything has been addressed to ensure that the development will be acceptable, and the tree retention I definitely support, and the bicycle rack additions. And then there is also a condition in there around the operation management plan to be submitted that will just give the city some comfort over the people that will be there, and it just works with that, it sort of supports the parking discretion for myself, and would like to see that hopefully the property is used for that purpose for a long time to come. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Van Dorsen. Councillor Moughlin.
Thank you. As Councillor Sullivan mentioned, this is a challenging one, and I've I've come down on the other side of the ledger than what Councillor Sullivan and Van Dorsen have done so. And, whilst absolutely support the aspirations and goals of the Beyond St Paul's Inc. organisation, I think if this was not a building that was being put forward by Beyond St Paul's Inc. and spoken about these aspirations, we would have quickly thrown this out here and now and not even considered a 3-storey development on Hampton Road. And whilst, Councillor Sullivan spoke about the diverse nature of Hampton Road in that area, if I think about from South Street to Leafroy, there's the church and there's the post office that he spoke about. And I think actually by having those 2 buildings as standalone buildings and not necessarily having others pushing up against those, that does provide that unique streetscape, which is, I think, characteristic of that part of Hampton Road and important to tell the story of that part of our town. So for me, quite succinctly, is that the height and scale and impacts are beyond what is acceptable in that area. And I think to also go to that question in regards to being able to manage traffic in and around that location, and to simply say, no, there'll be no parking. I understand what might be the aspiration, but I don't think that, and as has been described by the officers, I don't think this is going to work in that location. So I won't be supporting the alternative motion.
Thank you, Councillor Moughlin. Anybody else? All right. Councillor Kamado.
Press the wrong one. Like Councillor Moughlin, I've got scribbles all over my page here because we have toed and froed on this one. It is certainly a very challenging item, as many of our items are. However, I'm more inclined to agree with Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Van Dorsen, because I feel that they've articulated really well the technical aspects that, and I'm not going to repeat those aspects that have been covered, because as stated, there's many elements of this proposal that have been given really careful consideration in putting this alternate motion together, and I feel that it's achieved, in achieving much needed accommodation for the local community, we have to guarantee that the amenity that currently exists will not be compromised. And I feel that this does go a long way towards achieving this. So hence, with the conditions attached to the alternate motion, and given that the proponents have indicated a very strong willingness to work with the community to ensure that we have the best possible outcome, I feel that I can support this motion, but certainly understanding the concerns of others. So, yeah, that's where I'm sort of leaning at the moment. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Kamara. Councillor Graham.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, look, it is a challenging one, and I as well acknowledge all the work that all these people put into the local community down there. I am a part-time member, I suppose, if you like, of the St Paul's Church lifetime family connection there. But I, trying to put all that aside and just try and be a little bit pragmatic here. And I'm similar to Councillor Mofflin. I mean, it's a terrific idea, but if this was a standalone application in any street in South Fremantle for a 3-storey building, it would have been done under delegated authority, and we mostly wouldn't see it as a refusal. I don't. When you look at the page 16 and the extent of the variation on what is allowed, they've got a 1.3 wall height and 3 metre gable ridge height variation. I mean, just that alone to me is well out of reach for anywhere in that part of South Fremantle, Beaconsfield area. So look, I am going to, and because this is so line ball, I mean, I've always taken the view when it's a tricky one like this, the officers are the ones who get it right. And I'll be supporting the officers' recommendation on this one, but acknowledging the good work that people do for all sorts of people down at St Paul's.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Anyone else? All right, I'll just, we can try not to say anything, but because this one is a really tough one, I think we've all had some challenges with it. Personally, I was falling on the side of either approval or deferring it because of all the reasons that have been said tonight about the reasons to support this. And I just want to thank Councillor Sullivan for articulating many of those into the alternate recommendation. And I think for me personally, it covers quite a few of them that I was initially concerned about. Where with the alternate recommendation, we're saving a tree and we're getting more trees being planted. We're getting much needed housing at the same time. And yeah, I won't go into all the other reasons, but for the parking it's on a main road and it's right around the corner from South Street. So there's plenty of opportunities for people to catch public transport. So I'll be supporting the alternate recommendation on this one. And if it's not approved, just remind people that a deferral can be moved at any time as a procedural motion because we'll have to revert to the officer's recommendation. Yep, Councillor Slaughter.
Okay, first time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would really love to see this as 2 separate items. So the demolition separate to the construction of, because I agree with all of the things we've heard tonight about it not being a what's the official term? Not being a place of significance, of huge significance, and only a rating of 3. So if it was to be considered back in August this year, then I know it was deferred, but had it been, it would have been on the low end of heritage consideration anyway. And the alternate heritage report mentions that. So I'd feel very comfortable approving the demolition. I really want to love the alternate motion and support it, but I again agree that it is just a little too high. It's too high in my perspective. So that's where I am right now. I don't know what to do with that just yet. Don't ask me.
Thank you, Councillor Slaughter. No? All right, I'll give it to Councillor Sullivan to close if he wishes.
Thank you. I will. I guess the way this might work is, I'm still comfortable, 51% comfortable, staying with an approval, but I totally respect the point of view that perhaps we're not quite there yet. So I just wanted to indicate that in terms of procedurally, if this doesn't get up, obviously someone will move the other motion, and I would flag that I would fairly early in that process move a deferral to try and deal a little bit more with the tree issues, the parking or access issues, the overshadowing, and perhaps the scale and the streetscape. There are plenty of opportunities for nuanced design that would probably significantly deal with those matters. But I don't personally feel that we have to go down that path, but if that's the decision of the council, then I think some good work can be done there. The other thing I wanted to say is, I specifically didn't mention in my opening remarks about the land use, because I accept that while it is something that we would all love to see, it's not necessarily high up there on the planning consideration of the built form. And that's really largely what we're dealing with. And so in my mind, my justification might be that it was a fantastic thing for someone to have put forward, but my job was to look at the built form and its contribution or its contribution or otherwise to the environment that it was being proposed in. And I pretty much came to the view, particularly given the scale of the treescapes that are part of this lot, both the tree that is on this lot and the tree immediately to the north, which are already, as 25-year-old plane trees, I'm guessing, are at a scale that's bigger than the church. So my sense was that while there might be a scale issue, I didn't feel it was going to be a dominant issue in the streetscape, because the dominant element in the streetscape is already the trees, and hopefully in the future more of them will make it even more so. So that was my way of processing the aspect of the taller development. But of course we used not to be able to take trees into consideration as part of the scale and form of the streetscape. But now that we have tree protection policy, I think we should take existing mature trees into consideration as to what can be built behind them. So on that basis, I still feel it's an approval, but I perfectly understand if we don't quite get there tonight.
All right, and with that, I'll move the alternate recommendation that's before us. All those in favor? And that's Councillor Slaughter, Camarda, Van Dorsen, Sullivan, and Lawver. All those against? Councillor Moughlin, Graham. All right, that's an approval tonight with help for the alternate recommendation. There you go. Great. Item 1 done. I'll get the rest of the agenda. All right, we're now on the second item, which we do have some speakers that came for that. Sorry, I should let you know the officers will be in touch with the applicants about next steps. Is that? Yes. The officers will be in touch with the applicants about the next steps here. Great. All right, so item number 2, which is Ellen Street. We've got a Dr. Carl Swatos. Oh, wonderful, thank you. Now you've got 3 minutes, and then when you hear the chiming, if you can, or if you do hear the chiming, just kind of start to wrap it up if you don't mind. Thank you, though.
Honourable Councillors, Mayor Lawler, members of the Planning Services Committee. Thank you for this moment to speak. I'm Dr. Carl Swatos, a resident of Fremantle with German, American, Australian and Japanese heritage, and the owner of 89 Ellen Street, a California interwar bungalow that once whispered promises of open skies and open breezes, now a cage for my growing family. Picture the quiet desperation, mother, father, 2 young children and grandmother all crammed into a 100 square metre house with a makeshift garage conversion Every shared breath a reminder of how this cherished home has become a source of silent suffering. The rejection on the 30th of June 2025 under LP 3.6 for not reinforcing traditional patterns cuts deep, threatening to shatter our world. I am pleading for your approval of this DA so we can stay and reclaim the joy Fremantle once offered. This bungalow, built in 1928, embodies the raw beauty of our city, the veranda, catching once upon a time glimpses of the ships at sea, quiet sentinels of a port town's soul. Unfortunately taken by John Curtin's constant development requirements that have been a constant source of reservation for the previous tenants as well, the Doigs. And now, unfortunately, they left. But we hope to stay. It's why we chose here, the walkable streets alive with laughter, the vibrant mosaics of cultures that make Fremantle feel like home. Our children chase their dreams in rooms too small for their growing spirits. Our grandmother's daily pool visits, a fragile thread to normalcy. My wife's work at CBC and the Fremantle Workers Club, a daily grind without the peace of space. Footy games at Fremantle Park, scouts volunteering in the community. These are the tender rituals that bind us. To deny us this addition is to rip those threads apart, forcing a move that means a new car for endless commutes, jobs lost in a city we love, and our kids torn from the friends and fields that shape them. How can we bear the ache when a 15% housing undersupply and 12% overcrowding already weigh so heavily on families like ours? The rejection's traditional patterns feel like a cruel echo of a forgotten time, ignoring the living truth of Ellen Street. 57% two-storey homes, adjacent 1970s and 90s houses, non-heritage neighbours, standing tall without question, yet were branded disruptors. The Borough Charter whispers that heritage evolves, and the state's planning policy 3.5 demands balance. Councillors, Fremantle's a fair go isn't a relic. It's the pulse of this city, the reason our diverse roots can flourish here. Vote for our DA. Approve it with the roof garden, a concealed addition that honours the bungalow's charm while freeing us from this suffocating hold. Let us keep the walks to the pool, the cheers at footy, the lessons at scouts, and the wife's quiet, proud time at work. Don't let bureaucracy break with this beautiful place has built. Vote yes for our family, for Fremantle's heart. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next on this item is Sam Martin.
Good evening all. I'm just supporting the officer's alternative recommendation for approval. The crux of the issue seems to be the heritage policy covering the streetscape. This, just wanted to make it clear, this place is not heritage listed, it's just been deemed to be contributory in nature, and I think it is contributory. It does help with the streetscapes, and what we've been doing is trying to contribute to its contributory nature in a positive and uplifting sort of way. These guys do need more space. The kids are in a 2 metre by 3 metre bedroom. The grandma's out the back. It is really tight. It's a small house. It was sort of at the sort of an entry-level house of its day, and if it was built, if it was sort of more of a wealthy residence in those days, like the ones down the street, they would have had a bigger roof form up the back, like we're sort of proposing. And these guys do need a bit of space. They need this garden upstairs, I guess, is one of the other cruxes of the issue. But they need a bit of garden. They need somewhere to grow tea and herbs and go and have a cup of tea and get away from, you know, the kids, the wife, the husband, the mother-in-law, the kids, you know, so they've all got somewhere that they can sort of escape to and see the sky as well. Designing for this, we were really, really up against it. I didn't actually realise the depth of this new heritage policy in its application to contributory nature houses on a streetscape, and having to basically not be able to see a 2-storey addition from the street is mathematically impossible. So we're just trying to minimise it and put it into the roof as far as we could, but then you have building codes inside with minimum ceiling heights for habitable spaces, so there was a balancing act. We pushed it up the back as far as we could, we minimised it as much as we could, we made it in keeping with the traditional roof forms, as much as we could in the way they were crafted by the carpenters back then, and the carpenters we have working for the builders that I use these days. We can craft it really nicely, and you just won't even really notice it. You walk down the street and you'll think, oh look, Fremantle's beautiful. You look down to the harbour, the streetscape won't be adversely affected at all, I don't think. I don't think anyone will ever really look at it ever again. But the amenity to this family will mean that they'll be able to stay there, because it is literally a bit of a pressure cooker. They are seriously looking at moving if they can't get another couple of bedrooms for the kids to grow up in. Essentially, yeah, we've just done everything we can to match this heritage streetscape policy, but and in 2 years ago, in the previous evolution of this policy, you would have been able to do this even to a heritage listed property, but now you can't. So it makes it actually impossible to design two-storey additions to contributory nature in these heritage streetscapes. It makes it almost impossible to do work on these houses in this way. So
thank you, Sam.
Hope you can support the alternative recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Are there any questions for the applicant from elected members? Councillor Kamara?
Can I ask a question of
Oh, sure.
Director? The last comment about under previous heritage policy that this would have been an acceptable plan. What's your comment on that? Thanks.
Through the chair, while the policy is relatively new, the principles and the planning scheme have been pretty well the same for quite some time, which is why we need to write a new planning scheme. But the Borough Charter is the main document that we use to undertake heritage assessments. So I wouldn't agree with the applicant that our position would be much different. It's just that there is a more detailed policy framework in place now.
Great. There's no questions. I'll just also note that this item has an officer's recommendation and an alternate recommendation. That either one can be moved and seconded. So
I'll move my alt rec.
seconded by Councillor Graham. All right.
Thank you, Mayor. This is almost identical to the previous one, where I know that there are genuine concerns, but there also is a reasonable degree of support for at least the majority, if not all, of the application. So I'll just maybe go through my thinking as to why I think it meets the requirements for an approval, and then speak to some of the matters that I know others will have issues with. My sense of where we are with the contributory properties is that many of them will have little or no heritage significance. In other words, they might have a little bit of heritage significance, and in 10 years' time, they might be deemed to have genuine heritage significance. They're on the cusp, if you like. This is one of those properties, but it's not in its own right heritage listed. It's just acknowledged as being a property that is of a scale and form that contributes to the heritage precinct. In my mindset, that means that if, for example, it was to be demolished, that we would equally want to see another building that was of the same ilk. In other words, contributory, didn't take away from the precinct that it sits within. It's not in my mindset that the contributory properties shouldn't be altered, that they should. It's not in my mindset that they should be treated as if they were a heritage listed property, say at level 3, and therefore we wouldn't want to touch the front roof or the like. So, because if that was the case, then they should be level 3. You know, we have a distinction between a level 3 listing and the contributory properties, and we do need to treat them differently. Otherwise, what's the point? And so, you know, I take the view that provided what the applicants want to do in any contributing property doesn't take away its scale and form relationship to its immediate environment, then it should be acceptable. And that's kind of like my starting point for considering this one. And so when I look at the two adjoining properties, I know that, yes, we're meant to look at 3 that way and 3 that way, but the two adjoining properties are so dominant in the sense of this corner house that to me they are the relevant things to look at. Primarily because the studio, and I treat the studio as being an adjoining property because it reads that way in the streetscape. And because of the way it was developed, I didn't necessarily agree with that development, by the way, but it's there and it's the context and it's set a long way forward. And everything further south of that point is almost irrelevant when you're looking at this corner site from the corner. And of course, the property to the west, the beautiful early 70s sort of chocolate brick property, massive 2-story wall with a gable, again, presents effectively a much bigger building than this little corner one. So the notion that we would have the potential for even a whole second story on this building, for example, wouldn't have been out of the possibility, I think, in the way I view contributory properties. So that's the context. But, you know, the building does have a charm and it does almost have heritage listing. And I think what the applicants have come forward is trying to respect that, trying to be joyful about the nature of that building, but to take it to a different level. To take it from its very humble workers' cottage kind of level to something which probably would have been more appropriate in that precinct anyway, which is, you know, the sort of merchant houses, because that precinct has a lot of merchant scale houses, like the one down on the far corner. So, you know, that's essentially what this proposal is. It's taking it to that level. But it's not overscale in the context of the adjoining properties, and that for me is the big test. I do acknowledge a couple of things. I think there were some things that were done. For example, the kitchen that projects, a little small bay that projects on the kitchen. They were basically asked to try and keep everything sort of subservient to the original house. And so in doing so, they've kind of actually made a rod for their own back, because they could have put a gable on that and it would have been the dominant feature in Luke Street, and probably would have significantly screened the upper level additions. So the kind of like the perspective that they've been forced to consider from an officer point of view is actually, in my view, taking it the wrong direction in terms of trying to comfortably bring in this second story component. I know there is some degree of concern about the roof terrace. I have some concern about its height relative to the other parts of the building. But I also know that from experience in this council and seeing it elsewhere, that there is sort of this in our society, this kind of like almost a preoccupation that people can have a veranda at the second floor, like or a terrace area or whatever, but as soon as they go on the roof, it's like, oh my God, World War III is going to happen. I mean, what are they going to do up there? You know, and every 2-story house these days has a massive outdoor entertaining area, but as soon as you put it on the roof, there's this sort of like jealousy factor, or is it really going to like completely destroy the ambience of the neighbourhood? I think that's an overkill perspective, but I do think we have a responsibility to deal with it in the normal ways. What does it look like in the streetscape? Does it have overlooking, etc., etc.? So that's the way I've been approaching it. I think there is opportunity for it to be nuanced, but to do that, the reality would be that the property, that the additions would actually need to be a little bit more robust, not less robust, as I guess the recommendation from the staff was trying to make them. they would need to be more robust so that they can actually screen that roof terrace. So those possibilities are there, but as I said, I don't think they're necessary for it to meet the minimum threshold of approval. So I feel comfortable going ahead with the approval, but I'm interested to hear what others have to say.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Anyone else? Councillor Van Dorsen.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'm very happy to support the alternate recommendation. I was actually a bit surprised when in reading the officer's reporting that it was recommended for refusal. On my first look at the plans, it looked like a modest addition to a place, a place with heritage value. It has character. I didn't see any issues with the proposal. Some minor concerns, but I'll get to those. So I was surprised, but do see and agree with what the applicant architect has said, that it's sort of, the policy as it is a bit unworkable. It sort of doesn't allow for a second story addition to a single story house, which I think that's something that potentially we need to look at in future, but do appreciate the officer's reporting is absolutely as it should be, and it's assessed the proposal against our planning framework and the heritage policy. So I absolutely respect the reporting and thank the officers for that, and that is their job to do that. But for us as decision makers, I think we can take a sort of broader view of the application and the merits of it. So I think for me, that design, I know there's sort of two schools of thought on when you're doing heritage additions or changes to heritage buildings, whether it's sort of compatible or a more modern addition juxtaposed. Some people do prefer, but I actually don't mind this at all. I've seen it's entirely consistent with and compatible with the heritage values of the place or with the existing design. And I've seen this type of addition countless across Perth on this era of housing. So I really don't have any objection at all to that. I think the things that I looked at was the terrace, the roof terrace, and just from that, it's just proximity to the neighbours. With these sort of proposals, the key thing for me is looking at the impacts on the neighbours and privacy, or obviously overshadowing if it's big and all that sort of thing, but the impact on amenity of neighbours. And the terrace actually doesn't overlook I believe any habitable areas, and I understand that the neighbours have no objection to it. So for me, I'm satisfied that the roof terrace can stay, and I do also think or should be included, and I think it really significantly improves the amenity of the new development in that it offsets. To me, there's a real lack of private open space. I feel like that addition at the back has taken a lot of, just doesn't leave much in terms of private open space on the block, and this provides, offsets that and gives, significantly improve the amenity for you, giving you some more outdoor space to enjoy. So yes, very happy to support this alternate rec. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Van Dorsen. Councillor Graham.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, look, I'll be brief. Yes, I find this application supportable. I had a good look there yesterday with the applicant's architect, went right round the block pretty much. My only question mark again was the roof terrace. Everyone's touched on that. I asked Sam if he could talk him out of the roof terrace, and that's primarily a personal view of mine because I think roof terraces are an absolute waste of time in Fremantle. You are putting good money after bad. If somebody's got a roof terrace, I'd like to see somebody on one because I've never, ever seen a person on a roof terrace in Fremantle. So if you need to cut back on your costs a bit later on, Mr Applicant, that could be one to go. But if not, I'm not that worried about your roof terrace.
Thanks, Councillor Graham. Councillor Moughlin.
Thank you. Well, there's a challenge to the applicants to invite Councillor Graham to the opening party on the roof terrace if it does go ahead. I'm fully supportive of the alternative motion, and particularly in the sense that there are no significant impacts on any of the neighbouring properties, and the mixed form of the street means that this isn't going to stand out like it's not meant to be there. So I'm happy to support the alternative.
Thank you, Councillor Moughlin. Councillor Slaughter.
Thank you. I too support the proposed alternative motion, but I would like to note the planning officer's notes that the view cones have not been included properly for overlooking. So I would support this alternative motion if all of those things were tidied up and corrected in the application.
To the manager plan, is that something that could be a condition or?
Through the chair, the proposed condition 2 in the alternate recommendation includes screening.
Councillor Clark.
Yeah, I had only concerns about the neighbours with the rooftop, but I completely also appreciate, I live in a small place too with a grown-up family, so I appreciate the space issues and what we need to do in these situations. And I walk past there, I live near you, so I know that property well. And I actually appreciate that you've taken your ground level up, so you still have space to breathe. Yeah. I support the alternative.
Great. If no one else, I'll turn to Councillor Sullivan to close.
Thank you. And I'll just point out condition 2 does, as the manager mentioned, does require satisfaction of the normal requirements for screening and the like. I know that the applicant probably is relying a little bit on the neighbour saying it's fine as it is. That's a conversation they're going to have to come and have with the staff, and as to where that lands, I'm not absolutely sure, but it is in the condition, so just point that out.
Great. I'll put item 2, the alternate recommendation, up for a vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. That's a decision tonight. That's approved. And the officers will be in touch with you regarding the next steps. So thank you so much. Okay. I was looking through the agenda. I think we're going to have to do all these next items one at a time. There's not any obvious ones that can jump out and be moved en bloc. So we'll just go to item number 3. That's the local planning policy for O'Connor. Is there a mover and a seconder for that? Mover by Councillor Moughlin, seconded Van Dorsen. Any comments on this item? Okay, I actually just had a question, just more for clarity, because all of our hundreds and dozens of viewers out there. In the meeting attachments, there's 2 policies for this. It says one starts on page 28 and one starts on page 36. Can we just clarify? They both say the O'Connor local planning scheme policy on the pages there. Which one it is that we're adopting?
Through the chair, it's the first one, the amended LPP 3.8.
That was just for anyone that's watching. All right, all those in favor of this item? Oh, that's a unanimous decision as well. Great. Item 4, the North Fremantle Transport Planning Advocacy. Moved by Councillor Van Dorsen and seconded by Councillor Clark. Any discussion?
Thank you. I just wanted to thank the officers for their reporting on this and thank the council for the consultation process. I was really pleased with what the engagement that was undertaken and what went to the community, and yeah, thank the officers for putting this report, the community engagement report, together. And I think this was important for our advocacy. So I think, yeah, I just think it was a great initiative and will strengthen and clarify our advocacy to the state government. So yeah, thank you, and look forward to being involved in those ongoing engagement with state government so that we can advocate for the community. Thank you.
Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, and I agree with those comments, but I also have, I guess, a note of caution, having been through processes like the High Street upgrade, which is still to this day something that I regret my time not thumping the table more greatly, regret that this council didn't fight significantly harder for a better outcome in that environment. I actually feel Personally, I won't speak for the council, I won't speak for the organisation. I actually feel personally that I let our community down by even having that development go ahead. It is just awful. And if anything like that was to occur in North Fremantle, it would be significantly worse than that. I also, as you well know, have a lot of experience from community campaigns. And I would like to say that while this document is good and it puts out, you know, some very well-meaning academic positions about what good planning is about, what good road design and transport planning is about, it isn't necessarily going to win the argument at the end of the day, because all of that sort of stuff is already very well known in society. We're basically saying what every other good transport planner and good planner has been saying for probably 30 or 40 years, but it's still falling on deaf ears, right? And that is why we are, you know, if we think that simply having the high moral academic ground is going to save us from the hellscape that is still possible to be delivered by main roads and supported by a government that seems to not be able to rein them in, then we've, you know, really got to have a second thought. We will only get what we need as a society in this area, both North Fremantle and south of the bridges as well, when we genuinely get government to implement those things that are said in the officer's document. And that will require both this council and the community and other councils, East Fremantle, Mosman Park, Cottesloe, fighting like hell, because no other approach has actually got us anywhere close to achieving a truly integrated transport scenario when we've got the state and their agencies trying to deliver stuff from way back in the 60s and the 50s. So I just wanted to highlight that and really, to my colleagues particularly, the challenge is there for us. Community has to play a massive role in this. They can't just rely on this council to do it. So the bigger part of any voice is going to be the community voice, but we have to support that, and we have to provide the sort of, I guess, the rigour behind the debate that goes to state government to get a good outcome. Thank you.
There's no further comment. We'll put this item for a vote. All those in favour? And that's also unanimous. Great. Item 5 on the planning reports. It's just the planning information report for November. Can I get a mover? Councillor Graham, seconder, Councillor Van Dorsen. Any discussion? No? All right. All those in favour? Unanimous. All right. This is great. All right. Number 6, we're on to general reports. The adoption of the council committees and groups register and appointment of members. I'm assuming I'm going to ask that someone moves the officer's recommendation as amended in our additional documents. That's Councillor Kamada, seconded by Councillor Sullivan. If you didn't notice some of the changes, there's some changes to one of the working group terms of reference. But do we need to? Yeah, yep, that would be great. That's what I was just going to ask. All right, so we'll go through all the nominations for the committees and working groups right now. Yep. Did anyone want to be a deputy on the Audit and Risk Committee that isn't already listed?
I'm happy to be deputy.
You're on there. Do you want to be both deputies?
Well, no, but I mean, I'm in there, but I mean, don't we just have 4 members? And we've got 5 nominating?
So they're all nominating for...
True story.
Yeah, we'd be a bit informal, so those 5 are the ones.
The point is, I'm happy to be a deputy member of that committee if that just simply fixes that one.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Does anyone else want to be a deputy member? Probably not. Okay, all right, next one. All right, so on this one, there's some new rules. I'm going to hand it over to Melanie to describe those to us because this is new.
Thank you, through the chair. The council is required now to appoint the presiding member and deputy presiding member for committees. So we do need a nomination for a presiding member and a deputy presiding member tonight, so we can adopt that at the same time.
I guess the first question is, would Councillor Sullivan or Councillor Graham want to be the presiding or deputy member?
I'm happy to preside over that one if you're happy to let me.
We've had 4 plus me.
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Great. And are you happy to be a member, Councillor Clark? Great. And then Councillor Moughlin indicated that he would be interested in being one of the other members as well. Great. Is there anyone that would make 5?
No, that's okay. So,
All right, we got through that one too.
Just on that one, can I just clarify the numbers for the one before? Because Frank, Councillor Moughlin, if you'd like to not be on both, I'm happy to sort of swap out from audit and risk into the CEO performance. Just if it's a numbers game, I was just a bit confused how many councillors in audit and risk are needed, and if you'd like, I just thought I'd offer it while we're doing it.
Through the chair, the recommendation was for 4 members, so that's fine. Yep.
All right.
Yep, through the chair. So this one is a maximum of 4, so it's up to. We can appoint a few more if you would like. Otherwise, we can, or less. We do have 3 there. If there's any others, otherwise we will move with that one.
and the presiding member is?
And the presiding member, which we can appoint at the meeting because it's not a committee, but we can do that now if you would like to do that now.
I'll move, Councillor Kamara.
I'm happy to continue that role.
Great.
Thank you.
And look, I'm happy to be the 4th.
Great, thank you.
Awesome.
Excellent. Same with this working group. So this is the North Fremantle Plan Working Group. We currently have 3 members. We need 1 more if you would like, or we can appoint it with the 3. And also a presiding member of those members that have nominated.
I'm happy to join that one because I think I need to increase my knowledge of what happens over the bridge. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're picking a great year to do that.
Would any of the councillors like to nominate to be the presiding member? Thank
Oh,
you.
either.
Councillor Wall. Yep. Van Dawson, thank you.
Was that Councillor Clark or Councillor Van Dorsen?
Councillor Van Dawson for nomination of presiding member.
Great.
Yep, we're good. So we've got the RAP working group. We're appointing just the elected members and reappointing the current external members. We'll do an EOI process on this one and come back later. We currently have Councillor Clark and Councillor Sullivan. Any other, as a deputy member we can appoint here as well? just in case somebody is absent, just to ensure we've got some numbers. Thank you. Councillor Slaughter. Great. And we've got the mayor as ex officio in most of these, which we'll keep. Okay, so the JDAP meeting, obviously these appointments don't happen until January. We have Councillor Van Dawson and Councillor Sullivan in the first two, and the deputy members being Councillor Williamson Wong. Is there any other deputy members for that one? Anybody that would like to nominate? No? No? Okay.
It's the most fun committee ever.
We don't. It is best to have another nomination for a deputy member on this. Thank you, Councillor Slaughter. There is no specific order for the deputy members. It's just who can actually attend that one. The Resource Recovery Group.
There's 3 here. Yeah.
Okay, so we do have 3 for this one. We will have to either someone will have to withdraw from the second membership. Okay.
We hope it's only 6 months.
Confirm Councillor Sullivan for that appointment. Thank you. We've got the Walga Zone. We currently have Councillor Graham and Councillor Slaughter. Do we have a third nomination for that external meeting?
Who nominated, so if there's still a spot, yeah, I'm happy to go on
Councillor
that
Sullivan?
one. Been on that before.
Great, thank you.
Years ago.
Excellent. The Perth Southwest Metropolitan Alliance is the Mayor and CEO anyway, and we've got the Deputy Member for the SWCD, SWEFDEF, yeah. Do we have a Deputy Member for this external meeting?
This is the Aiden Committee, isn't it? Yeah.
Correct.
Again, I'm happy to do deputy if no one else wants it.
Great. Yep. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. We also have the LEMAC committee. We have Councillor Graham. Does anybody else want to nominate for that one? Okay. We can. Councillor Kamada, thank you. And the Southwest Metro Regional Road Group, we have no nominations for that one as yet. Would anybody like to nominate?
Do you know how often it meets, that one? I've been on it before, but it's a long time ago.
I think it's about 3 times or 4 times a year at the most.
And not as regular. They have recently had a meeting which we represented the city at. Yeah, but they're not as regular as the rest.
Yeah.
They're irregular.
I'll go on it. Someone has to replace Doug.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Okay, so if we've got no further changes for that one, we'll leave it at that for the nominations. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, that's that. Okay, is there any further discussion on this item? No? All right, I'll put it to you. Oh, sorry, Councillor Slaughter.
Is this where the terms of reference of the working groups might be discussed?
Yes.
In which case, I have a question about the Destination Development Working Group, and in particular regarding the 4.3, to provide advice to the lead city officer or make decisions around the allocation of budget. So this will have some financial delegation responsibility attached by the looks of things, in rather than just advice. The wording is not clear.
Turn that over to the Director of Matt.
Through the chair, we have actually made a small amendment in the additional documents that
good.
covers that, so they won't have any ability to allocate budget.
Okay, I don't have that copy. Right, thank you.
Yeah, the new version of that terms reference, the very last back page of the additional documents. Okay, if there's no other further discussion on this item, we'll put it for a vote. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Great. Now, the hot topic of the night is our adoption of council and committee schedule of meetings. Would someone like to move that? Officer's recommendation, Mofflin, and seconded by Councillor Van Dorsen. All right, any discussion?
I apologise to Melody for my little outburst in the councillors' lounge earlier on, so apology. But look, I don't have any problem with the schedule, but I still don't think that we have actually nutted out a time to start the meetings, and I don't think now's the time most probably to do it. I'd prefer to see that come at 9 a.m. throw the options around, because I'm still not sure whether it's a cost thing or whether it's going to be looking after the people that come in. But at the end of the day, this is our meeting, and we should get some priority in what time we start our meetings, and where we go for dinner and all this sort of thing. So I don't want to open up the discussion tonight, so I would prefer if we could perhaps just delay the timing of the start of the meetings until we've had perhaps a discussion at an informal elected members.
Great, I'll hand that over to Melly. Can this possibly be voted on in parts?
Yes, thank you, through the chair. We can tonight put a minor amendment in to adopt the schedule with a slight change to the start time for the ordinary council meeting to start at 6 o'clock and have this discussion a little bit later. This is just to get the dates in place for next year. If we do want to change the time, we can bring an item back to council to do that if we do so wish. So happy to have that conversation outside of council chamber, if you would like to move that.
I'm happy to move that.
One second, Councillor Sullivan, did you want to speak before?
No, I was going to move that, but I'll let Councillor Graham do it because he's already got Melody offside. So.
Let's go. Councillor Graham is moving a minor amendment to change our meeting start times to 6 p.m. instead of 6:30 as listed. The dates will stay the same, seconded by Councillor Sullivan. That is just a minor amendment, so we can do that here tonight on the night. Is there any discussion about the time change or further discussion? Councillor Mofflin.
Thank you. Yeah, I suppose it would just be great to hear the benefits from staff in regards to looking at a later start time and the opportunities that come from that, noting that Councillor Graham would like to be able to do that as a, it's not we're not in a committee as such at the moment to be able to have that conversation, so happy to support, but on face value, I'm okay with a later start to a meeting, but for the purposes of council being engaged on whatever the decision might be, happy to support this minor amendment.
Great, I'll just say probably ordinary council meetings, plural, just so it's not just one. And then put the minor amendment up for a vote. All those in favor? Great, that's unanimous. And now the item as amended. Any discussion? All right, we'll put it up for a vote. All those in favor? And that is also unanimous. Great. Now we're on to the item 8 in general reports, the Resource Recovery Group transitional arrangements. Someone to move that, Councillor Mofflin, seconded by Councillor Sullivan. Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. Rather apt now that the two RRG representatives have moved and seconded this motion. Yeah, I don't need to speak to this, but just a question for the officers in regards to the progress, or rather around the engagement of Regroup around the waste supply agreement, and just to understand its comparability to the RRG, both from service quality and a cost perspective, and just get a comment on that.
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, so we engaged with the regroup again earlier this week. They've provided now a draft update of the waste supply agreement with the minor amendments made that we discussed in respect to the rates and some of the minor negotiation points. So we have managed to reach a position now where we've got an agreement across the board. So that's good. In terms of comparable services, we've set up a series of KPIs that set quality standards that are comparable to our current outputs, so sort of recovery rates at around 80%, and resource processing running at 95% as well. So that's comparable to what we do. It's been interesting. There's a bit of a sting in the tail in that. What we found was, as a counter to that, the regroup are holding us to account in terms of the quality of waste that we actually deposit at the centre as well, which is good. So we've got to be really careful that we keep the quality up of the waste delivered. Otherwise, we're up for a penalty. So for every 1% of contamination that we deliver that's above an agreed threshold, which is again set at what we are at now, would cost us an extra $1 per tonne. So it was good to see that come in because it shows that the regroup are taking it seriously, but it does keep the onus on us to keep on top of things around education, and the messaging and the quality of our waste that we deliver there as well. Does that answer your question?
Any other discussion? No, we'll put the item up for a vote. All those in favor? That is also unanimous. Now on to item 9, the Davis Park Precinct Road and Pedestrian Access Way closures. Can I get someone to move and second this? Councillor Van Dorsen moved, seconded by Councillor Kamada.
No, I'm happy to go to a vote, support the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Great. All right, all those in favor? That is also unanimous. Wonderful. We've done number 10, so we're on the very last item, probably one of the most exciting ones tonight, the Fremantle Library Biannual Report. Can I get someone to move and second that? Wonderful. Moved by Councillor Slaughter, seconded Councillor Clark. All right, all those in favor? And that's unanimous. Great, we have no statutory reports. Committee and working group reports, none yet. Motions for which previous notice has been given, we have nil. Urgent business, there was none flagged earlier. Late items, none. We don't have any confidential business, so I will declare the meeting closed at 8:12 p.m. Great work, everyone. Thank you.